Welcome everybody to our for Student Success mini conference. I'm Marianne Cullen. I am the Associate Department Head at the Alpharetta campus, and I am an Associate Professor at the library. We're happy to have you all here today. I just want to remind everyone that all the sessions are in the same WebEx room, and you can find the conference program at lib.gsu.edu/OSS for Open for Student Success program. Starting with us today is Dr. Allison Calhoun Brown. So I'm going to introduce her now. Dr. Allison Calhoun Brown is Senior Vice President for Student Success and the Chief Enrollment Officer at Georgia State University. She directs the university's efforts to increase enrollment, retention, progression, and graduation by developing strategic initiatives and refining operational processes to support student success. Using data and analytics to establish proactive approaches to reduce educational risk, GSU has become a national model for undergraduate education. Over the past decade, the university has had one of the fastest growing graduation rates in the country. It has increased the number of undergraduate degrees that it confers by more than 80% since 2010 and has eliminated achievement gaps based on race, ethnicity, and income. Dr. Calhoun Brown has implemented new and innovative programming to address issues of effective academic advising, unmet student financial need, curricular progression barriers, the connection between college and career, and support for at-risk students. Focused on the student life cycle from pre-enrollment to the start of career, the Division of Student Success utilizes a comprehensive metrics-based approach that incorporates all aspects of enrollment management, including admissions, student financial management, academic advising and support programs, registration, and co-curricular engagement to advance student achievement at Georgia State University. Dr. Calhoun Brown graduated with honors from Oberlin College and earned an MA and Ph.D. in political science from Emory University. Welcome, Dr. Calhoun Brown.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann. We appreciate that introduction. And I want to thank Mary Ann as well as Charlene Martoni and really the entire library for this opportunity to share about the work that's going on at Georgia State, as well as the work that they are doing to increase awareness about the use of open educational resources that have been openly licensed, other affordable resources. It matters a lot for our students. I love the theme of this conference, this mini conference, Open for Student Success, because certainly that's why Georgia State flings its doors wide every day. But I particularly like, the double meaning that the open educational resources can be a major tool to help us meet this goal that we have for the university to support students and to enable their success. Let's see here what's going on with my slide deck, because the challenge in front of us is extreme. This is a slide that I'd like to share that from a couple of years ago, but it describes baccalaureate degree attainment by age 24, broken out by income quartile. And what we see here is that the top income quartile doubled its graduation rate, and that third income quartile, going from 14.9% to 36.1%, also doubled. But look at those bottom income quartiles. The second income quartile only going from 10.9 to 16.5, and that bottom income quartile only going from 6.2 to 8.3, despite all the access work that went on in the United States between 1970s and the early 2000s, an enormous amount of work to see that metric moved almost not at all. And if you look at the number of low-income students who are actually graduating from U.S. high schools, the national average across all the states is 51%. And if you look at the map there, disproportionately in the southern states, in our own beloved Georgia, 60% of low-income students, 60% of the students who are in the public high schools in Georgia are low-income students. That's precisely the students on the last slide that higher education has not served well. And our financial aid director reports that about 75% of our student body is either in that lowest income quartile or that second income quartile that we were just talking about. And if you look at the percentage of Georgia State undergraduates who are on Pell or receiving a Pell Grant, that number is almost 60%. You can see in the last recession there, 2007, 2008, that the number after 2008 of Pell eligible students constantly has grown here at Georgia State. And I think it's really telling that the average Pell family income last year was less than $27,000 on average for a family of four. So you can see that there's significant financial vulnerability in that population. 10 years ago, and I know that we are already excited, all of us excited, that soon perhaps we will ratify a new strategic plan. But I use this really because it has been a major focus of our university for the last 10 years or so to become a national model for undergraduate education, demonstrating that students from all backgrounds can achieve academic and career success at high rates. And Georgia State has made some real progress. I'd like to always build on a positive. So, I draw some attention to the positive student outcomes at the baccalaureate level, and for our university overall. We award more than 10,000 degrees every year. We are number one in the state of Georgia for graduates that are first generation, Pell eligible, African American and Hispanic students. I hope you know that we're number one in the nation for degrees awarded to African Americans, baccalaureate degrees. We award more than 2,000 degrees a year to African Americans, again, baccalaureate students. No other university in the nation does that. We've awarded more than 2,000 for the last 6 years in a row. No other school in the country has done that even once. We are having our 7th consecutive year at the baccalaureate level where there have been no equity gaps. We see we've had a huge increase in undergraduate degrees and even larger increase in African American degrees, Pell eligible student degrees, and Hispanic degrees. And we're really excited about that at the baccalaureate level. Similarly, the news is really good at Perimeter College. If you look at the years right before consolidation, this chart goes back all the way to 2008. Of course, the university and Perimeter College, or Georgia Perimeter College, were consolidated in 2016, but we've also seen steady increases in graduation rates for Perimeter College. And when you break those out by race, though, after the pandemic, small equity gaps have started to re-emerge. The change, though, since the year before consolidation was announced has been dramatic. 17% overall, 17 points overall, 14 points for African Americans, 15 points for white students, 20 for Hispanic students, 16 for Pell eligible students, and tremendous increases across the board. And we're really excited about that. Georgia State's gotten some national buzz, and we don't do this for national buzz, but we like the recognition because it motivates us more and it draws students to us. Rankings of best undergraduate teaching, most innovative university, on and on. These are good things, but we still have more to do. And Dr. Blake has laid this out in his pillars, and it is also reflected in the new strategic plan that we hope that will be ratified relatively soon. There's a whole area on student success 2.0, and continuing to increase our graduation rates for baccalaureate students, for associate students, really for all students in all the academic pathways that exist here at Georgia State. Georgia State wants to be known for inclusion, not exclusion. We are the largest institution in the state of Georgia. One of every 6 students in the USG is at GSU. And I know you know our students were among the most diverse in the country. You know, I love this statistic because it puts things in context. Georgia State has nearly 30,000 Pell eligible students. The Ivy League, all of it, has less than 10,000. And you saw from that first graphic, they are significantly less likely to graduate in the national data, but that's not true here at Georgia State. We try to be student ready as much as we ask our students to be college ready. And again, these data indicate that as a community, we've been able to make a tremendous difference. And the way we've been able to make this difference, and this is a question that we've been asking for about 10 years, we ask ourselves, are we the problem? Now, you and I know, all of us know, there are lots of problems. You know, K through 12 education, you know, some people might say that that's a problem. Funding for state institutions, some of us might say, you know, that's a problem. Some of us would say poverty, you know, in America is a problem. There are lots and lots of problems. We don't deny that all those problems exist, but as a huge institution full of very smart people, some of whom are listening, you know, right now and certainly teach and work here every day, we want to ask ourselves, are there things that we can do as an institution to make a difference? Because we have found that there are policies and practices and systems and just things that we do that slow progress, and more than slow progress, really put up barriers to student success. And that those barriers don't impact all of our students the same way. We found that low-income students, first-generation students, underrepresented students are disproportionately impacted, and that those things provide the foundations for the equity gaps that continue to plague most of higher education. So I wanted to give you a couple of examples, particularly of financial challenges that we know our students faced, and for many, many years, we weren't doing anything about them. But when we started doing things about them, it made a tremendous difference. So let me give you, just got a couple of examples for you, I think. So 1,000, more than 1,000, were the number of fully registered students who we had to drop for non-payment when we first started looking at this a little bit more than a decade ago. This is terrible. These are the students who we have worked with to get them advised. They're already taking classes. They've signed up. They're ready to go, but they didn't have the money to actually pay. And when we looked at the data and said, okay, well, what happens to people who have to stop out for financial reasons, or that we have to drop for financial reasons? We went back and found that senior students were at the greatest risk. They were at the greatest risk because their eligibility perhaps for the Hope Scholarship was running out, or some other financial aid eligibility was running out, or their parental resources had come to an end, and it was difficult to pull together the money to help them finish their degree. And only about 30% of those students went on to graduate within a reasonable amount of time. And when we really dug into the data, many had balances of less than $300. And the sad reality is that in the university system of Georgia, we're not allowed to extend credit. So if the students had a balance, we have to drop the student for non-payment. And it was really out of this dynamic that the Panther Retention Grant Program was born. An average of $900 awarded. There's no application. And since, we started this program as a very small program in 2011, we've made more than 19,000 awards there. And those students who receive those awards graduate at a really high rate. Last year, we had more than 1,300 students who received those Panther Retention Grants, senior students who might not have been able to graduate otherwise, went on to graduate because we were able to help them with this micro grant program. In fact, nearly 90%, more than 85%, 86.5% of the students graduated within a year of receiving the Panther Retention Grant. So that's an example of the university making investments, noticing a problem, using the data, and then making a change that benefited our students. Another example has to do with the loss of hope. Now I know, we all know that the Hope Scholarship is a merit-based scholarship here in the state of Georgia, where if students graduate from a Georgia high school with a greater than a 3.0, they will at least earn the Hope Scholarship. They could also, if they have better grades and strong test scores, earn a Zell Miller Scholarship, but it's all a version of hope for this example. If those students had hope and are able to maintain hope, they went on to graduate from Georgia State at about almost a 61% rate. That's a good rate for Georgia State. But if those students came in with hope and then lost hope, that graduation rate plummeted to 21%. These are students who came in with at least a GPA of 3.0. So when we first looked at this, and this has been a long time ago, but the data still bears this out. This is still largely true that without intervention, students who lose hope graduate at only about a third of the rate of students who never even had hope in the first place. And all things being equal, those students who had hope are actually stronger students. We think that this is the reason why those students who lose hope graduate at only a third of the rate, is that hope was their plan. And even though it's meant to be a merit-based scholarship, it quickly becomes an access-based scholarship for low-income students. And without it, it's hard for them to persist. And so we've done some things to try to increase that. We have this Keep Hope Alive program that provides small financial incentives for the students and all kinds of academic support to get them back on track. And you can see it's a dramatic difference that 62.5% of the people who participate in the program go back and get hope, compared to less than 9% of those who don't. Let me give you some contemporary information. This is information from this academic year. We calculate something known as unmet need in the financial aid space. An unmet need is a measure of the gap, really, between the resources that students have from financial aid, from any scholarships they have, from any grants that they have, from work study, from the parent contribution. All those are the resources that they have, up against how much it actually costs them to go to school. Now, this is not just tuition and fees, but the cost of attendance. And what you can see here is that after the pandemic, so in 2022, and there would be a year lag in this because, as you know, financial aid is usually calculated on last year's income. So there's a year lag on this. Right after the pandemic, we've seen a tremendous increase in the amount of unmet need. The slope of that increase is the same for both associate students and bachelor students, but it's a tremendous increase. In 2021, that number of unmet need for bachelor students was above 10,000 students, and for associate students was 7,000 almost $8,000. And while it's come down a little bit in 2022, it's still significantly higher than it was before the pandemic. Fortunately, Georgia State has had resources through the HERF Act and through the CARES Act, those federal acts that allowed us to support our students. And, I'm happy to report those disbursements. We gave 108 to more than 181,000 students, $90 million. We gave money in at the bottom of the slide, lots of money in tuition. More than $23 million went to tuition from completion grant monies and from minority serving institution monies. And we gave more than almost $5 million in emergency assistance funds to students. And the disproportionate request in emergency assistance was for food insecurity. So it's a measure of the financial vulnerability of our students over this time period that we've been trying to address and support to keep them enrolled in school and making progress toward our degree. And it's really with that kind of set of financial realities that this Open for Student Success initiative is so nicely positioned, as part of the OpenStax institutional partnership to really increase awareness and the use of openly licensed and affordable resources on our campuses, because it can make a tremendous difference. Just like I was telling you, there are things that we already know are barriers that we haven't done anything systematically to address. And books are one of those things, quite honestly. We know every year, estimates are that students spend or are asked to spend more than $2,000 for books. We already looked at the data earlier that almost 60% of our student body comes from family incomes of $27,000 on average for a family of four. They don't have $2,000 to spend on books. It's a huge challenge. And what have we historically done about it? Nothing. Nothing. Many faculty members, and I think Georgia State is doing better than this now, but I know when I first started teaching here, now getting to be, this is my 29th year at Georgia State, people didn't even know how much their books cost. And like I said, I know that we're doing more, and the low cost, no cost initiatives that the state has put forward, try to make a difference in this space, but still the burden is significant. And so it supports student success when we engage in affordable learning. And there are affordable learning grants that our university has been using to impact students, to think about how and what other tools we can use and how to use them effectively in our classes to make a difference. And in fact, Georgia State is the #1 institution in the state of Georgia for students that are impacted by these affordable learning grants. I am so happy to work here with amazing people who have a heart for the students and who care about this issue. Georgia State University has saved our students $12 million through spring of 22. And we've been awarded more than 34 Affordable Learning Georgia grants to engage some of this work. Wanted to give you an example. This was reported publicly here in Georgia, here at Georgia State. You can look for this report. But Georgia State eliminates textbooks and material costs for criminal justice students. And this story reported that we eliminated cost for 98% of the 7,000 students who were taking criminology courses on our campus. We received a grant, a textbook transformation grant, and in 6 semesters, we saved more than 10,000 students an estimated $800,000. And they were partnering, the criminal justice department, partnering with the library to figure out how to make these resources available, even resources that we had to purchase. How can we make them available and more accessible to our students? So the department and the library leading in this. I know of a pilot that I was made aware of, that Shelby Frost and her colleagues over in the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies have been doing in economics, using open educational resources with interactive tools to support students in those economics classes. And there's been no, when she first did this, there was no significant grade difference in the fall of 21. But in spring of 22, the reports are that the grades were actually higher. So there's no huge risk that the students won't succeed. In fact, we are hoping that we'll continue to see, as she expands these kinds of pilots, and we are able to serve more students with these open educational resources, that we'll see even bigger differences in grade academic performance. Certainly, we've seen when we compare the data over time that OER classes, so the classes that were using open educational resources, the DFW rates decreased in those classes. And in classes that weren't using open educational resources, DFW rates increased. Now, this is just a snapshot. We're not extrapolating, but it is very encouraging early data about some of the difference that these kinds of programs can make. Ultimately, all the work that we do here at Georgia State contributes to these kinds of outcomes, which really make the difference. In social mobility, Georgia State is consistently ranked among the highest institutions in the country for moving students from the bottom 20% of Americans by their annual household incomes to the upper 50% 15 years later. And this makes a difference for those individuals, for their families, and for our communities, quite honestly. The work that we're doing is significant. This is the vision of what we're trying to accomplish here at Georgia State. We want, I know that that's why I went into higher education, so I could make a difference, so we could change people's lives. And every single year, every single semester, we're doing that. And Open for Student Success is the kind of initiative that makes more of this possible. So thank you so much for an opportunity to present today. I'll stop sharing my slides.